and welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in business and in life and simplify. And I get the pleasure of talking to super smart people all over the world who can help us simplify these topics. Now, today's topic, you may think, well, that doesn't really apply to me. But you know what? To be honest, I hear about it more and more and more when I talk to friends, colleagues, whomever in business masterminds and all that. We're going to talk about anxiety today. My special guest today is Sanghvi. She's an anxiety relief coach who uses holistic, trauma-informed techniques to help people heal from anxiety, stress, and worry. Utilizing somatic practices and embodied spirituality, combines the latest neuroscience research with ancient spiritual practices like mindfulness to help people calm their nervous system, work with intense emotions, and release that trauma in order to heal chronic anxiety for good. First fell in love with neuroscience at Stanford University and brings her love of science to her love of spirituality in helping her clients. I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast today, Sanghvi. Hello, Uma.
Hi, Mary. Thank you.
I'm so glad that you are here because this is a big topic. This is not an easy one to talk about, but I'm hoping we can kind of share some simple, practical tips.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of simple things that people can do to dissolve their anxiety and their worry and their fear in the moment.
Well, before we dive into this, because I feel like this could be a topic that triggers people. This could be a topic that's a bit scary. This could be one that people kind of want to go, I'm going to press the pause right now because I don't know if I can handle it. Would you mind leading us through a very quick little guided meditation just to help us kind of get aligned, get centered, and get more connected, mind, body, and spirit?
Yes, absolutely. And just in case you are in that category where it's a bit triggering, just know that it's really widespread. The National Institute of Mental Health says that 1 in 5 American adults has suffered from anxiety in the last year, and that 1 in 3 adults in the U.S. experience anxiety at some point in their lifetime. So that you are not alone.
Wow.
Okay. So we're going to do a guided meditation for grounding. And grounding, just to set this up, is really about honoring the humanness of being in our body. And a lot of times, those of us who are anxious, we are very, we have a lot of energy in our higher energy centers. If you're familiar with the chakra system, anxiety is really correlated with a lot of activity in the third eye and the crown chakra. So, and it's such a beautiful thing to have openness in those realms, but then it becomes even more important to cultivate a rootedness and a connection to the ground and to be plugged into the earthly experience, which is also the human experience. That's what cultivates balance in the body, and balance is healthy, balance is powerful. So we're going to do a grounding meditation. So I would just invite you to get really comfortable wherever you are and just make any adjustments that you need to make in order to feel really supported right now. And then I invite you to close your eyes and to just feel your feet and to just notice, I have feet. Notice that you have toes and heels. You can wiggle your toes, really get connected to this part of your body. And as your eyes remain closed, just ask yourself this question. How do I know that I have feet? How do I know I have feet? Can you feel the life force energy inside your feet? Can you feel your aliveness? Perhaps you feel it as a warmth or a coolness or a tingling or constriction, relaxation, numbness. Just notice whatever sensations are in your feet. And notice what it feels like to be alive in your body. in your hands, in your heart? What does it feel like to have a body? Now picture yourself in a forest. And in this beautiful forest, feel the breeze on your skin. Notice the temperature of the air. And then breathe in the air of this forest, this freshness, this oxygen, this life-giving vitality. And notice that in this place you are completely surrounded by nature. Above you, below you, 360 degrees. You're surrounded by growing, living, vibrant energy. And this is the energy of Mother Earth. Imagine that you have all the time in the world to just enjoy being right here in this peaceful place. To soak it in, to breathe it in. So listen to the sounds around you. What is the melody of the forest? And now become aware of the effect of gravity on your body. Feel a pleasant sort of heaviness come over you. And using the power of intention, allow your energy feet to sink down into the forest floor. If it's comfortable for you, plant your feet a foot or so into the earth, like you would plant a tree. And allow the soles of your feet to open up and grow roots. Big, powerful roots that grow down deep into the earth. Let these roots grow as far down as they want to. And feel the coolness of the soil. Feel your roots winding their way around the rocks. Notice where your roots come into contact with roots from other trees. Feel your connectedness to the forest. On each inhale, invite the energy of the earth into your roots, into your body. What is this sensation of earth energy? Is it warm? Is it cool? Imagine it any way you'd like. Maybe it has a color. And just feel this fountain of healing earth energy flowing upwards into your body. Feel it soaking into your muscles, your tissues, your cells, your organs, in your legs, your pelvis, your torso, your back, shoulders, arms, neck, all the way up through your face and up through the crown of your head. If there's any part of your body that's in need of healing, send the loving energy of the earth to that place. Invite whatever you need from the earth into your body, whether that's stability, steadfastness, creativity, regeneration, deep rootedness, power, strength. Invite it all the way into your bones, into your blood, into your cells. If there's anything you're holding on to that you no longer need, simply send it back to the earth. Send any worry, pain, stress, anything heavy you've been holding on to. Send it back to the earth where it will be transmuted and transformed. Just let it go. And as you breathe up and down through your roots, you can repeat this mantra to yourself. I am grounded and supported. I am one with the earth. And just have a moment of gratitude for this Mother Earth that is always underneath you. Have a moment of love for this forest, for trees, for seasons, for mountains, for rivers, for flowers, and for your favorite place in nature, wherever that may be. Just send a wave of love from your heart down into the layers of the earth, through the soil, the rocks, through caves, through crystals, all the way to the core. Send a message of love and thanks into the earth. And feel this wave of love return to you, all the way from the core, into your body. And just receive this gift of love from Mother Earth. And taking your time, slowly coming back to this time, this space, listening for any sounds around you, wiggling your fingers and toes. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. And as you look around, see if you can stay connected to this feeling of being in your body.
Uma, that's so beautiful. And I think, for me, when I do guided meditations like that, it's all about slowing down, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It's the mind that goes a million miles an hour. So if you feel scattered, if you feel like you're going a million miles an hour, it's because you're not in your body. Our body doesn't go that fast. Our body is in stillness. It's in the present moment. So slowing down, just simply slowing down, is such a beautiful way to reconnect to your body, get out of anxiety, and come into the present moment.
So let's back up a little and talk about, what is anxiety? Can you define it? What does it look like and feel like to you?
Yeah. I think that anxiety can be described at a few different levels. So I want to talk about it in terms of how it feels in the body, and I want to talk about it in terms of the nervous system. So the symptoms of anxiety can feel very different from person to person, but generally it's a feeling of tenseness, of a rapid heartbeat, of tightness in the chest. Maybe you have sweaty palms. Maybe your thoughts are racing. Maybe your breathing gets very shallow, or you hold your breath completely. And the reason that we have those physiological symptoms is because on some level, the body and the nervous system believes that it's not safe. It believes that it's under threat. So all of those symptoms are what happens when an animal goes into fight or flight, which is the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. And so if there's a trauma of some kind, we go into survival mode. We switch out of thriving and we go into survival. And in that state, our body completely changes its entire agenda. The only thing that's important now is to stay alive. And so we have this option to fight or flee. And to do that, we need a ton of energy to be shunted to our arms and legs, because we need to literally have the resources, the energy to fight or to run. So all these things get shut down in the core. Like in the moment that you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, you don't need to be digesting your lunch. You don't need to be doing, your hair doesn't need to be growing. So all these systems shut down. Digestion shuts down temporarily. The immune system shuts down temporarily. Cell growth and repair, reproduction. So, and that's fine. It's a brilliant survival strategy for very short periods of time. Like if you were actually running away from a tiger, it would be super useful to have all this adrenaline and cortisol in your bloodstream. But if you're not running from tigers and your stress is more the chronic variety, Or if we haven't fully released a trauma from the past, which is the case for a lot of us, then we stay stuck in that adrenalized, tense, scared place. And it really takes a physical toll on the body. And over time, that fight or flight response turns into what we call anxiety.
And, it's felt not just in the brain, and that you may think it's just overthinking and you just have headaches, but it really is felt in all aspects of your body. So I keep hearing the word embodiment. Can you simplify that for us? What does embodiment mean?
Yeah, good question. So the thing is that we live up in our heads. We don't really live in our body. I mean, I can go for an entire day being a head with hands, like a dissociated head with hands in front of a screen, right? Completely forgetting that I have, a heart and I have all these organs and I have, this entire body. So we are living in a very overly cerebral time in our history when there's a real disconnect between ourself and nature. And there's also a disconnect between our mind and our body. So that sort of dissociation between mind and body can create all kinds of discomfort, like always feeling worried. If we're just drawing on the intelligence of the mind, we get into patterns of overanalysis, overthinking, over worry, trying to figure things out. And that is what leads to this feeling of anxiety. It's sort of a vague, non-specific sense of fear and hypervigilance. So there's a lot of anxiety floating around. I really think of it as, an epidemic of dissociation. So the opposite of that is embodiment. And embodiment is really about having a connected sense in the present moment, a felt sense of being in the body. It's visceral. And it doesn't even mean that you're moving your body necessarily. It's like people will always say embodiment, is that what happens when I work out?
Or dance.
Or dance, right. Yeah. And it doesn't, unfortunately. However, we can be very embodied while we're working out. We can be embodied while we're dancing. But often what I find is that sometimes people work out in order to escape from their body and escape from the discomfort that's in there. So the way that I think of embodiment is it's really connecting to your life force energy. It's connecting to your chi, your prana. It's that animating substance that is the aliveness inside of you. And it's a subtle energy. Because everything is energy, we're made of energy. And when we tap into that sense of who we are, we come out of the mind, we get truly embodied. And it's a really powerful state of being, embodiment.
Yeah. And I mean, even when we were going through the guided meditation, when you started talking about feeling your toes root down into the ground, I could feel the tingles. I could feel my toes sort of like tingle with cold, that's really it, right? Like just stopping, slowing down and reconnecting with all the different parts of our body on a much different level.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is.
And, we forget to do that so often. I think, it's the trap of being busy is that you just go, and you don't stop to actually connect. And, that guided meditation, took maybe 7 minutes, 8 minutes or so. I mean, it's not something that you have to do like, oh my God, it's going to have to take 3 hours of my life. I don't have any time for it. Like you can integrate it into your life in little ways, right?
Absolutely. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. And once you start doing that work, the embodiment work or the grounding work, which might be as simple as doing a 5-minute meditation, you will be able to drop into that sense of your own energy much more quickly. Like when I first started doing this work, Mary, it took a longer time because it was unfamiliar. Yeah. But like anything, embodiment becomes a habit. And then you just can drop into it and it just becomes like, oh, there I am. Oh, that's who I am. got it. I've been over-identified with my mind and my thoughts all day. No wonder I feel like this. And it gets quicker and quicker and quicker.
And, I find that as a small business owner myself, I have a team under me, but certainly when it was just me, myself, and I, it is very easy to fall straight into your brain and overthinking because you're like, well, I'm the only one turning the crank at this business. And if I don't do all the things all the time, you have this fear that everything's going to crumble. And I'm sure there are quite a few people listening right now that are nodding their head yes. Like, how do I actually make that time? Is it a matter of just simply spending a couple of minutes and slowing our breath down? Is that like step one, or is there something simpler?
Good question. I think you can bring more embodiment into your life, regardless of what you're doing. A good example is that yesterday I had exactly the kind of day that you were talking about. I'm a solo entrepreneur and I'm in the middle of a huge creation period. And when I go through those periods, Mary, I have a hard time getting to sleep. There's so much activity in my head. I just spent the entire day in a state like that. And I can tell you, I got to all the way to 10 o'clock at night without having felt very grounded. And I just was eating. And it was just a sense of connecting to my food. The thing about food is that food is deeply grounding as well. Food comes from the earth. We come from the earth. Everything that we've ever eaten has come from the earth. So there's this amazing symbiosis. And as I ate, I just set the intention that I'm going to feel the deliciousness of this food. And I swear it was the most delicious meal I have had in months because I was so aware of my body. So you don't need to set aside, time for this. It can be something that you do while you're waking up. It can be something to do while you're dancing. And I have to just say that when you start to get really embodied, things that bring you pleasure will bring you massive pleasure. It just multiplies pleasure and joy by 1,000. So even just like getting a massage, if you have ever had the experience of feeling like, oh, I need some self-care today, I'm going to get a massage or I'm going to go, do something for myself. But then you leave that session still feeling kind of stressed. Practice really receiving in your body. We find that a lot with us women, we have a really hard time with the concept of receiving. And I just love, just as like one thing, is just becoming more aware of the joys of receiving. So even receiving a compliment, practicing receiving a compliment, practicing receiving help. There's so many ways. We have so many helpers. And it's really about bringing awareness to those parts of our life more than anything. I think that's the first step to dissolving our stress.
Yeah. How did you become an expert on this stuff? Have you struggled from anxiety in the past, or what's your personal story?
Yeah. So I was not anxious until about 15 years ago. And then in my mid-20s, it suddenly kicked in. It was almost as if I could feel a gene turning on. And I recognized it because it looked exactly like my mom and my grandmother, who are super worriers. And so when it kicked in me, at first, I didn't identify with it at all. Like I could look at it and be the observer of it and say, not me. And so it didn't play a role in my life. But then everything changed. So I started to get chronic symptoms. My health completely changed. I started getting sick all the time. And I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. And I was having all these mystery symptoms that doctors didn't know how to treat. And suddenly the anxiety, which had been sort of there in the background, it just roared into the foreground. And I started to have so much anxiety about my health, anxiety about going places. If I go to this place, will my symptoms get worse? If I do this activity, will my fatigue get triggered? And suddenly the anxiety became almost larger than the symptoms themselves. And so the amazing thing, though, is that I learned, and it's been a long time in being on this path, that there's a gift in the anxiety, in that the healing, it's completely possible to heal, and that healing it actually is about the nervous system. And that because our body and our brain is so resilient, neuroscientists are just starting to realize just how much neuroplasticity we have, and that the brain is far more adaptable and malleable than we ever thought before. I have been forced to learn this. And there's a quote by a trauma researcher named Peter Levine, and that I wanted to share. And Peter Levine, he does all this research that basically connects trauma with chronic symptoms like anxiety. And he says that while trauma is hell on earth, its resolution may be a gift from the gods. And I have found that to be true in spades, because as I went through the process of healing my nervous system, it took me to a really surprising place, which was a deeper connection to my intuition.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. I mean, I think that there's either, like Course in Miracles, there's either fear or there's love, right? And if you're leading towards fear, then you're not leading towards love. So I think that for me, when it comes to anxiety, it is the process of overthinking. It is the, oh my God, what's going to happen if right? It is the opposite of love. And so if you look at anxiety as being this hidden gift, I could see how it can start to shed a light on maybe what's going on so that you can get back to your intuition, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you brought up the Course. And I just, when you talk about love, moving towards love, there is so much healing in radical self-compassion. That is the first love and the most important love, because I'm sure you've heard we can't give away something that we don't give to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that has arisen from the healing work that I've done, is that I finally understand what self-compassion means, because before it was just a word and a theoretical construct. And now I'm really starting to understand what it means to have compassion for myself.
What does it mean to you?
It means honoring my own needs in the moment, and it also, to me, it's about knowing who I am, because my own spiritual beliefs are fundamentally that we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. And again, that was a very theoretical concept for me until I started doing the nervous system healing work. And now I feel viscerally connected to spirit. And I've been having some really interesting things happening to me just in the last year even, that I know are as a result of me becoming more embodied and a result of me getting out of my head and into my body. But yeah, I mean, self-compassion is about being present with that life force energy, because there are signals, is information in that energy. Like when we were doing the guided meditation and you talked about feeling the tingling in your feet, we have this incredible body that is always communicating with us through that language, through the language of sensation. And those sensations, you might interpret them as being emotion, like I'm angry right now or I'm sad right now. But those are all intuition coming through, And self-compassion is really being able to hear and then taking action based
Doing
on what you
something
hear.
about it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so tell me then, is it okay to just be in the good vibes world? Everything's just happy, hunky-dory all the time? Or is that, should we look at the bad as well as the good?
I love that you asked that, because there is such a strong message in our culture, the keep calm and carry on message that is ubiquitous. And good vibes only. And I have to tell you, Mary, it drives me crazy, because if you're human, you're going to have the full spectrum of emotions. And neuroscientists tell us that there's 4 basic categories of emotions. That is fear, anger, joy, and sadness, which we can remember as mad, sad, glad, and afraid. Okay. And so I would love to only be glad. I would love that. But I, for whatever reason, chose to come here and be in a human body, and having the full spectrum is part and parcel of that experience. And I really want people to understand this, that what we resist persists. So if it's good vibes only, and we're not going to deal with our anger, we're not going to feel our grief or our sadness, they're going to persist. It doesn't go away. And not only that, but our emotions are the GPS for our life. We would not want to throw those messages away. Once we start hearing them, we realize that they're our best friend. They're actually the best life coach that you could ever have. Just to give you an example, anger. Okay, anger shows us where our boundaries are. And anger is an emotion that women in particular really struggle with, because we're brought up to not be angry, to suppress our anger. It's not considered to be ladylike. There's so much messaging around anger in particular. And that's something that I work with a lot with my clients, is feeling the anger in the body. And when you feel it and allow it, it is empowering. It is like, it's a big energy, and it shows you where your boundaries are. It's such valuable information.
But then once you identify the anger, do you need to then channel it out? Because you don't want it pent up in you, right? So is there, whatever, Tai Chi or, breaking glass or something else that's going to help you, throwing axes. That's a thing now. People do that, like at a facility, you throw axes and, feel better about life. But
oh my goodness, that's really interesting. Isn't that amazing? I love that. I love this question. And I actually, my last blog article is called The Gift of Anger. It's all about this topic. But okay, so the thing about anger is that all of those things that you just described, and we've heard things like, punch a pillow and get your anger out.
Right.
It's all resistance. It's all a form of like, let's get this out of the body as quickly as possible, because that energy in the body is so big, it's so uncomfortable, and it's deeply powerful. And I believe that at a certain level, a lot of us, women in particular, are afraid of our own power. And so instead of punching it away, we want to actually let it flow. Like, imagine that, maybe think of something that you're angry about right now, if you're willing to play with this, or even something that you're slightly irritated about, because that'll work too for the purposes of this exercise. And just see if you can feel where in your body that energy is showing up. For me, a lot of times anger is like, it's in my chest. When I really tap into my body, I feel that it's like a heat, it's like, it's hot. It's like a fire. It's something like that. And so I would hang out with it the same way that I would just observe a good friend who's in a lot of pain. I wouldn't tell my friend to get away. You need to get out of my house. You need to, I need to throw you out the window. You would sit with that person who's in discomfort and pain, and you would just love them. You would just love them. That is presence, and presence is transformative. So we would be present with our anger in the moment on the level of sensation, not on the level of narrative. We would come out of the head in that moment, get into the body. And what I say is we trade why for where. It's like the minute I'm angry, I always ask the question, why? Why am I angry? Who did this to me? Let me tell you the story about it. And what I'm saying is trade why for where. Instead of going into the narrative, come into your body and ask, where is this energy? And then just let it flow. Imagine that it's like a river and that anger wants to move and it wants to flow, and just let it do that.
So when I'm doing that, am I journaling what's coming out? Am I talking to myself? Like, how do I process through it? Because I think sometimes these things bubble up, fear, anger, worry, whatever. And we go, oh my God, this is a thing. And then you just get distracted by your phone or an email or TV or whatever. Like, how do we stop and actually let it flow?
Good question. I love that you brought up journaling, because journaling could be something that you do before you really get into the body. I would actually use that even as the first step in the process of working with anger, is just letting that narrative flow, getting it out on paper, and really letting it blossom and bloom in your body. And then letting it flow. What that means is, and it's an experiential process. So I'm going to try to put words to it as best as that I can, like wrap words around it. But it's and it's also something that many of us have never done before. So I'm going to be talking about something that maybe your listeners don't have a frame of reference for. So I'm going to talk about it physically, like as if it is water. So emotion is energy in motion, and emotions don't want to be frozen. They don't want to be stuck, and they don't want to stay with you. They don't want to haunt you. They don't want to move in. They want to move. They want to move inside your body. And so if I'm angry, I want to get very clear on where that energy is. And I want to feel the resistance to it, because inevitably my mind is in that moment saying, I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. I want it to stop.
How do I fix it?
How do I fix this? Yeah. And so we need to find that place of resistance and just soften it a little bit, and imagine that anger is water. And we find that if we allow flow, that it will move. And it might even impel us to move our body. Like in that moment, I might want to like get up and like put my arms up in the air, or I might want to like do this with my face, or I might want to growl. Right? I might want to do something somatically that is an outward expression of the anger. And so I just give myself permission to move in any way that feels good to me. The difference between hitting a pillow because you're angry and you're trying to get the anger out, and letting the intention come from the inside, is it's an inside out movement. And it's like, okay, body, what would feel really good right now? And the body's like, I need to get as big as I can. I need to take up space. I need to like stomp my feet. So that's what it looks like when anger flows. It's a visceral experience. It's experiential. It's somatic.
It sounds almost primal as well. Like it's a completely different approach. And I think it kind of gives me a couple of aha moments here, because I certainly know that in the moments where I've ever felt angry, you feel your heart going up, your rate going up. But then, in times where I've clicked off, where I press the big red F it button, I'm just like, I just have a glass of wine, or, I'm going to get like a big, pile of food that isn't healthy at all. Like, you find all these other solutions to quell the anger or help you pass through it. But really, maybe it is just as simple as what you're saying about really moving the body or expressing it in a different way. Aha.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways that we bypass our emotions, and you just named some of them, and that's completely fine. And, anything from binging on Netflix to drinking wine to even overworking, these are all ways that we sort of bypass our feelings. And we have to have self-compassion, because that is going to happen. Listen, I love chocolate. Okay. Like, I love binging on Netflix. I overwork, that's one of my sort of go-to bypasses that I have to watch out for. But here's the thing, is that when we suppress, when we refuse to feel, it doesn't go away. It actually gets lodged in the body. There's a saying, I'm not sure who first said it, that your biography becomes your biology. We carry emotion and stress and trauma with us. So if you decide, okay, I don't want to deal with this emotion today, that's fine, but it's still going to be there. And you're going to bring it to the next interaction that you have with a human being. You're going to bring it to your concept of yourself. Let's say the anger is with someone who's a friend. You had a conversation with that person and you don't want to be angry at your friend because you love your friend,
right.
And also you're a nice person and you're a spiritual person, and nice people and spiritual people do not feel angry.
Not all the time, at least. Right.
That's a story. It's a story we say.
That's a myth.
You will bring it to the next interaction that you have with that person, whether or not you want to. So allowing it to flow it's a gift, it's healing, it's empowering, it's necessary.
It's beautiful. I mean, it really talks about the wisdom that's lodged deep inside your body, right? Like this is, if we can stop and slow down and really truly listen, what do you think your body's trying to say to you in any given moment?
A lot. The body's always speaking to us. And the wisdom of the body is so much greater than the wisdom of the mind. Like just right now in this moment, you can feel that you're breathing. And if you tune into that breath, you'll feel that you're bringing life-giving oxygen into your body and that your body is breathing you, right? So whether you're thinking about it or you're not thinking about it, you're breathing. In this moment, your hair is growing. In this moment, your heart is pumping blood. In this moment, your cells are repairing themselves. So the intelligence of and your mind wouldn't even begin to know how to beat a heart. Your mind wouldn't even begin to know how to regrow a broken bone. Your mind wouldn't begin to know how to keep this entire massive symphony running and playing. That is the intelligence of the mind, of the body. That is the intelligence of the body. It is so vast. And it actually brings to mind, there's a quote from the 4 Agreements that Don Miguel Ruiz writes, go inside and listen to your body because your body will never lie to you. Your mind will play tricks, but the way you feel in your heart, in your guts, is the truth.
Yeah. And it's something that we just forget. I mean, I joke about it. I do have goldfish brain sometimes where you tell me something and 7 minutes later, it's like right out that ear and I'm focused on something else. But, it's something that I feel like we have to be reminded of. And that's where a daily meditation practice, prayer, I mean, the things that we did earlier with embodiment, I mean, that's where you go, oh yeah, that's my compass, right?
Yes. I love the word compass. When we talk about intuition, we say I had a gut feeling, or we say I knew it in my heart. So like these messages are coming through the body. And part of this practice is simply just learning to listen more because you are getting answers to all of your questions right now from your intuition. It really is like having a wise guide with you who has your best and highest in mind, knows what your dreams are, whether that's for your business or whatever it is, and is connected to everything, is connected to the universe, to spirit, to this entire network. So, I mean, why wouldn't you tap into that wisdom of that incredible wisdom that you have? We have access to those signals all the time. And it's an amazing way to run a business too, is to make like intuitive decisions. It makes everything easier.
And you offer these wellness blueprint sessions, which I've had the absolute pleasure of doing one of these with you so far. Tell me more about your blueprint. And you talk about how it helps you really restore joy. What are maybe a couple of things from that people that are listening today could do right now to heal, or at least begin to heal?
Thank you. I love working with women on restoring joy, on getting out of the survival state and moving back into thriving. And some of us have been in survival for so long that we don't remember what it's like to thrive. A lot of my clients, when they come to me, they say the same thing, which is, I just want to feel like myself again. But that was so long ago that they're not really sure who self is. And so it's a process of getting to know this being, that life force energy again. Once again, it's an embodiment process. And I really think that one of the first steps to restoring joy is learning how to receive, letting the goodness that's around you come to you. Like, you don't have to push all the time. There doesn't have to be striving all the time. There's so much help. There's so much beauty. There's so much grace all around us. And just recognizing all that goodness and grace and help and support that we're getting. So it could be a gratitude practice, like a very practical way to reconnect with joy, is just like, take a moment now to think of 3 things that you're grateful for from the past 24 hours. That is a lovely practice. Either doing that first thing in the morning before you get out of bed, or last thing at night before you go to sleep. That is a beautiful way to see that you're so supported, in this moment. I would also say that connecting to spirit, connecting to the universe, whatever you call that force, think about where you find that. What environment are you in? What are you doing when you're so lit up? When you feel like yourself? When you feel joyous? Are you listening to music? Yeah. Are you painting? Are you going for a hike in your favorite place? Are you connecting with animals? Are you connecting with children? That is the spirit. That is spirit flowing through. And the more we cultivate our connection to spirit, the more we restore joy in our life. And the last thing that I would say is that restoring joy is really linked to self-compassion. It's really linked to self-worth and self-love. And cultivating gentleness towards ourselves is key, because we can be very hard on ourselves. And one of the most practical ways that you can do that is to talk to yourself the way that you would talk to your best friend, or the way that you would talk to a child.
That's it. And, we don't, because we are so hard on ourselves. You wake up in the morning and you throw your clothes on, you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, geez, Louise, that's the first thing you say. And I think it is a practice. And I think it is just simple daily steps. It may not be instantaneous overnight, but just taking those steps is really, really important.
Yes, absolutely. Intention is so important. Just setting an intention to connect with yourself.
Beautiful. And I have found in my own personal journey and done a couple of episodes so far. I'll put the links down in the show notes for everybody if you wanted to listen back. But, about warning signs of and how to spot a panic attack. Other episodes that kind of come up that are related to what you're talking about is definitely talking to Yvonne Talley about breaking up with busy. And also an episode we just did recently with Abigail Steadley, who is somebody you mentored under. I mean, I love that this keeps coming up as a topic on our podcast, because I really do believe it is a business topic as well as a life topic. It is so important to be connected, mind, body, spirit, regardless of your religious or spirituality beliefs. I mean, this is universal. Yes. I want to ask you, Uma, a couple of questions I like to ask all of our guests. What's maybe one book you're reading these days that is either inspiring you or maybe challenging you right now?
I am reading a book right now called Who Dies? Okay. And I have it by my side at all times. It's written by Stephen and Andrea Levine. It's called An Investigation of Conscious Living and Conscious Dying. And I'm a bookworm. I'm sort of an addict, so I admit that I have a problem. But this might be the best book I've ever read.
Wow. And what does it cover?
Period.
Does it talk about dying?
It's really, the title is Who Dies, but it's really who lives. The question is, who am I? And I think that there's a fundamental principle of the universe, of spirit, that wants to know itself. And that's what this book is about, is like, what is this thing? What is this experience that's happening in the world? Because we can get very confused and identify with the mind. We can identify with the body. So if I'm not my mind and if I'm not my body, then what am I? And that's what the book is.
Interesting. Well, we'll definitely put a link down below in the show notes for that one as well. Do you use any apps that help you meditate? I know I use Headspace, but do you use anything like that?
I use a lot of guided meditations from different people.
Okay.
I do have the Calm app on my phone, and I used it a little bit, and it's really useful.
Yeah.
But I have a tendency to look for more somatically minded meditations, and there are some out there. But yes, I do really love Calm.
Okay, great. Now, who is one person that you know in your circle of friends or network that you think we should interview on the Simplifiers podcast, and why?
So you mentioned Abigail Steidley, who's one of my coach mentors. My other mentor is Irene Lyon.
Okay.
And Irene Lyon works directly with Peter Levine. And Peter Levine is the trauma researcher who basically studied this question about where do chronic symptoms come from. So Irene would be an amazing person to talk to. She's really a nervous system specialist.
Excellent.
And she's very passionate on the topic.
Great. Well, we'll definitely connect with her and get her on the podcast. That'd be great. So we talked about it earlier, but gratitude and simplicity, in my opinion, they go hand in hand. Like, tell me, what's one thing you're grateful for right now in your life?
I'm grateful for creativity. There's so much creativity flowing right now in my life, in my business. I'm also really grateful for resiliency. It's like a fundamental quality of being human. And I'm so grateful for that we can heal, we can change.
Yeah. And people can find you online at your website, umasanghvi.com. I'll put the links down below. You have an unusual last name, so I'll spell it real quick. Sanghvi. Is there anywhere online, maybe social media, that you hang out at the most where people can connect with you?
Yeah, people can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook group called The Embodied Empath.
Okay.
And so you can look for that. I'm also on Instagram at MindBodyUma.
Okay, perfect. So again, we'll put those links down in the show notes below for people so they can get connected with you. And also, not to forget, on your website, you do have 10 powerful grounding techniques to dissolve anxiety and achieve instant calm. So make sure to visit her website to check that out, umasanghvi.com, and that will certainly help you. Gosh, Uma, thank you so much for all of this. I feel like this is a conversation that's not easy for some people. It's a little bit scary, and we tend to sort of shove it under the rug and pretend like our Instagram life is all beautiful and fine. But really, some of these things might be happening to people behind the scenes. So if there's somebody that is listening right now that feels that way, like they've got to keep it picture perfect all the time, I couldn't possibly tell somebody what's really going on underneath. What's one thing you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her?
I would say you are surrounded by love. You are surrounded by support. And I'm going to share the quote that I have on a sticky note on my laptop. It's from Hafiz. I wish I could show you when you are lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being.
Uma, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much, Mary.